Rain falls on the leaves of an ancient forest in northern Germany. Beneath the soil lie twisted swords, broken helmets, and the bones of men who believed they were invincible. 2,000 years ago, this quiet landscape became the grave of Rome's power. Here, in the year 09 AD, 3 entire legions vanished. The Roman Empire master of the Mediterranean met an enemy it could not see, could not predict, and could not defeat. This is the true story of the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest, a masterpiece of betrayal, a triumph of guerrilla warfare, and the moment when the expansion of Rome came to a permanent end. By the reign of Emperor Augustus, Rome believed the world had been tamed. Gaul had been conquered, Spain subdued, the Alps pacified. Beyond the Rhine River stretched Germania, a land of dense woods, swamps, and scattered tribes. Roman generals saw it as the next logical province, another territory to tax, organize, and civilize. At the center of this mission stood Publius Quinctilius Varus, governor of Germania. Varus was not a battlefield genius. He was an administrator, a man of law courts and account books. His task was to transform tribal lands into Roman order, to collect taxes, settle disputes, and teach the barbarians to obey. To assist him, Rome relied on a man who seemed perfect, Arminius. Born among the Carusi tribe, Arminius had grown up in Rome, trained as an auxiliary officer, granted citizenship and equestrian rank. He spoke flawless Latin, understood Roman tactics, and wore the uniform of an imperial ally. To Varus, Arminius was proof that Germania could become Roman. In truth, he was planning its destruction. Arminius lived between 2 worlds. In Rome, he learned discipline, engineering, and the psychology of the legions. In Germania, he never forgot the humiliation of his people, the taxes, the floggings, the arrogance of Roman judges who treated chieftains like criminals. He understood something Varus never did. The tribes would never accept Roman rule, but they were divided Carusi, Bracteri, Marsiold enemies who fought each other more often than the invader. Arminius decided to do what no Germanic leader had done before, unite them through deception. While dining at Varus's table, he warned of imaginary rebellions deeper in the forest. He recommended moving the legions away from the secure Rhine forts to restore order. Varus trusted him completely. Other officers grew suspicious, but the governor dismissed their fears. After all, Arminius was Roman in every way that mattered, or so he believed. In late summer, the column set out. Legio 17, 18, 19, nearly 20,000 soldiers, along with wives, merchants, slaves, and baggage carts. It was not an army ready for battle. It was a moving city. The road narrowed into woodland tracks. Rain turned the soil to glue. Armor rusted, shields grew heavy, wagons sank to their axles. The famous Roman formation, tight, disciplined, unstoppable, stretched for miles like a wounded snake. Arminius slipped away under the pretext of gathering allies. Instead, he met the tribal coalition waiting behind a prepared barrier of earth and timber, a long wall built beside a marsh near modern Calchris. The Romans were being guided into a funnel with no escape. The attack came without warning. Javelins erupted from the trees. Stones smashed into marching ranks. Invisible warriors howled from the mist. Roman officers tried to form battle lines, but there was no space, only mud and chaos. Engineers abandoned their tools. Civilians screamed. Mules bolted into the swamp. For 3 days, the column staggered westward, building makeshift camps at night, while the Germans circled like wolves. The legions fought bravely. These were veterans of many wars, but their greatest strengths became weaknesses. The short stabbing sword required close order. The heavy shield demanded firm ground. Here there was neither. Arminius never offered open battle. He attacked flanks, killed messengers, targeted officers. Step by step, the Roman machine came apart. At Calcres, the trap closed. The Germans had constructed a sand rampart topped with sharpened stakes. As the Romans squeezed between hill and bog, the tribes struck in overwhelming waves. Cavalry horses panicked. Archers ran out of arrows. Standards disappeared beneath bodies. Ancient writers described scenes of unspeakable horror. Heads nailed to trees, prisoners sacrificed to tribal gods, Roman eagles dragged through the mud. Modern archaeology confirms the nightmare thousands of fragments of armor, a cavalry mask crushed flat, coins scattered where pay chests burst open. Governor Varus realized the truth too late. Surrounded, wounded, and facing capture, he fell on his sword, choosing Roman death over barbarian triumph. By the fourth day, organized resistance ended. Small groups tried to break out. Most were hunted down. The proud names 17, 18, 19 would never again appear on a Roman muster roll. When news reached Rome, the city went into mourning. Augustus is said to have wandered the palace at night, crying, "Quinctilius Varus, give me back my legions." Temples were closed, guards doubled, and the frontier pulled back to the Rhine. The dream of a Roman Germania died in those forests. Rome did not forgive easily. Years later, the young general Germanicus led punitive campaigns across the Rhine. He found the battlefield still littered with bones, bleached by sun and rain. Soldiers recognized skulls split by axes, chains where captives had been led away. Germanicus buried the remains with military honors and recovered 2 of the lost eagles. But even his victories could not erase the lesson. The empire had reached its natural limit. For centuries, scholars argued whether the battle was myth. Then, in the 1980s, metal detectors near Calcres began to reveal the truth. Roman coins, stamped with Varus's countermark sling stones and spearheads, clustered along a narrow corridor, the remains of the very rampart described by Tacitus. Science reconstructed the event with chilling clarity. This was not a single clash, but a running annihilation, planned with strategic genius by a man who knew Rome from the inside. The defeat was more than bad luck. It exposed fatal assumptions. Rome believed discipline could defeat any terrain. It believed loyalty could be purchased with citizenship. It believed the barbarians would fight like Romans. Arminius proved otherwise. He used mobility instead of formation, fear instead of honor, the forest instead of walls. The empire faced a new kind of war one. It could not standardize or tax. After Teutoburg, emperors abandoned dreams beyond the Rhine. Forts hardened into a permanent frontier. On one side grew the Latin world of cities and law. On the other, the Germanic cultures that would one day become medieval Europe. Languages, nations, and identities were shaped by that decision. The map of the modern continent still follows the line drawn in blood in 09 AD. Arminius became a legend first to his people, later to a unified Germany that called him Hermann the Liberator. Varus became the symbol of arrogance, the governor who trusted too much and understood too little. Yet the forest keeps its silence. Wind moves through the same oaks, and beneath them lie the final witnesses, bent swords, broken eagles, and the dust of men who believed the empire was eternal. Rain has no memory, but the earth does. Beneath the fields of Calcrease, under quiet German farms and modern highways, lie the teeth of an empire bent swords, shattered helmets, coins stamped with the face of Augustus. They belong to men who believed the world was already conquered. In the year 09 AD, they learned otherwise. Rome called this land Germania Magna, a place beyond maps, beyond roads, beyond law. To the legions, it was a frontier inconvenience, another province waiting to be organized. To the tribes who lived there, it was home, sacred ground watered with the blood of ancestors. Between those two visions stood one man, Arminius, officer of Rome, son of Germania, master of both worlds. The Battle of the Teutoburg Forest was not simply a defeat. It was a psychological earthquake that changed the destiny of Europe. Empires measure power in territory gained. This story is about territory Rome never gained again. At the dawn of the 1st century, the Roman Empire appeared unstoppable. Augustus had ended 100 years of civil war and wrapped the Mediterranean in a single system of law and taxation. The legions were not just armies. They were machines of civilization, building roads, founding cities, imposing order. Beyond the Rhine, however, the machine began to stutter. Germania was unlike Gaul or Spain. There were no great urban centers to capture, no kings to defeat in decisive battles. Power belonged to dozens of tribes bound by kinship and feud. They fought as they lived, fast, decentralized, personal. Roman generals despised them as disorganized barbarians, yet they feared the forests that swallowed columns whole. Augustus appointed Publius Quinctilius Varus to transform this wilderness into a province. Varus was wealthy, connected, experienced in Syria and Judea. He understood taxation, courts, and the Roman way of bending subject peoples to routine obedience. What he did not understand was war without rules. To him, Germania was already conquered in principle. The legions camped along the Weser and Lippe rivers looked more like occupation police than an invasion force. Markets opened, contracts were signed, and Roman law began to replace tribal custom. Everything appeared calm. Calm was the mask of a storm. Arminius had been taken to Rome as a youth, probably as a hostage of loyalty. The empire educated such boys to become bridges between cultures. He learned Latin rhetoric, cavalry tactics, the mathematics of supply, and the unspoken psychology of Roman command. He fought for Rome in distant campaigns and was rewarded with citizenship and equestrian rank honors rarely given to barbarians. To Roman eyes, he was proof of success. Germania could be civilized one ambitious son at a time. Yet identity is not erased by medals. Among his own people, Arminius remained a prince of the Carusi. He saw how Roman tax collectors treated chieftains like debtors, how centurions punished free warriors with the lash and insult, worse than death. He watched Varus impose courts that ignored ancient customs. Step by step, he concluded that Rome did not want allies. It wanted subjects. The genius of Arminius was patience. He never raged in public, never threatened rebellion. Instead, he became Varus's most trusted advisor. He sat beside the governor at banquets, translated disputes, recommended which tribal leaders could be trusted. All the while, he forged secret alliances, convincing rival clans that their only future lay in unity. A few Romans suspected him. Segestus, a pro-Roman noble, and Arminius's own father-in-law, warned Varus that betrayal was coming. Varus dismissed the accusations as jealousy. The governor believed what he wished to believe, that Roman order was inevitable. In the late summer of 09 AD, reports arrived of unrest in the interior. Villages supposedly refused taxes, bandits threatened merchants. Arminius advised a show of force march the legions from their summer camps back toward the Rhine along a new route, settle disputes on the way, demonstrate imperial presence. Varus agreed. The column that set out was immense. Legio 17, 18, 19, auxiliary cohorts, cavalry wings, engineers, surveyors, slaves, traders, women, and children. This was not a compact army, but a moving province, stretched for kilometers along muddy tracks. The Romans advanced with the confidence of routine. Scouts where lax armor was packed on wagons to spare the men discomfort. The weather turned against them, cold rain without end, swelling streams, collapsing bridges. Progress slowed to a crawl. Arminius rode ahead to gather allies. Instead, he gathered executioners. The first attacks felt like accidents. A few javelins from the trees, a dead mule driver, a burning supply cart. Varus ordered the column tighter, but still believed he faced scattered bandits. Roman doctrine demanded decisive battle on open ground. The enemy refused to provide it. The terrain itself became the main weapon. Paths narrowed between hills and bogs, wagons overturned. Formations stretched thin. Legionaries trained to fight shoulder to shoulder found themselves isolated in knots of mud and brush. Then the ambush unfolded with terrifying coordination. From hidden ramparts, the Germans hurled spears and stones. War horns echoed through the trees, creating the illusion of endless numbers. Each time the Romans tried to form a line, the attackers melted away, only to strike the baggage train again. Officers fell first, deliberate targets, meant to blind command. The legions built a fortified camp that night, exhausted and shaken. They were still confident Rome had survived worse. None imagined that the road ahead had already been transformed into a corridor of death. For 3 days, the column struggled westward. Rain soaked bowstrings and rotted leather. The famous rectangular shields grew too heavy to lift. Cavalry horses slipped and broke legs. Discipline, Rome's greatest invention, began to dissolve. Arminius orchestrated the violence like a conductor. Tribes that had hated one another for generations now fought side by side. Carusi, Bructeri, Marsi, Chatti. They avoided frontal clashes, slicing the column into pieces, isolating cohorts, murdering messengers. Ancient chroniclers described scenes almost surreal. Centurions drowning in their armor, priests sacrificing prisoners in clearings, legionaries begging for orders that never came. The Germans understood something fundamental: kill, the sense of control, and an army kills itself. Varus called councils of war, but options were few. Retreat meant the same narrow roads. Advance meant deeper forest. He chose movement, hoping to reach open ground that no longer existed. Modern archaeology pinpoints the climax near Calcrease Hill. There the tribes had built a long earthen wall, reinforced with timber, an artificial cliff beside an impassable bog. The Romans were funneled between these barriers like cattle into a chute. When the main body entered the gap, the Germans struck with everything left. Standards toppled. The precious eagles' souls of the legions became magnets for desperate fighting. Auxiliaries fled. Civilians were cut down among the wagons. The rampart allowed the attackers to rain missiles from safety while charging downhill into disordered ranks. Here the Roman system finally died. Varus, wounded and surrounded, followed the ancient code of his class. He fell on his sword. Senior officers imitated him. Without leadership, resistance collapsed into isolated last stands. By evening, the legions of Augustus had ceased to exist. What followed was not battle, but ritual. Prisoners were tortured, some sacrificed to tribal gods, others sold into slavery. Roman heads decorated sacred groves. The eagles were carried away as trophies of a new order. Messengers carried fragments of the disaster to the Rhine forts. Survivors arrived mad with fear, speaking of demons in the woods. When the news reached Rome, the city entered collective trauma. Augustus dismissed his German bodyguard and reportedly beat his head against the palace walls, crying, "Varus, give me back my legions." Never again would numbers 17, 18, 19 be assigned. In Roman memory, they became cursed. 6 years later, the empire returned under Germanicus, adopted son of Tiberius. He marched into Germania, seeking revenge and the lost eagles. What his soldiers found was a landscape still littered with the dead. Tacitus writes of fields white with bones, skulls nailed to trees, altars dark with smoke. The army gathered remains and built a massive funeral mound, the first monument to Rome's limits. 2 eagles were eventually recovered, but the third vanished into legend. Germanicus won battles, yet even his victories felt hollow. The cost of occupation was too high, the terrain too hostile, the tribes too resilient. Rome quietly accepted a new frontier along the Rhine. For centuries, scholars doubted the ancient texts. Then spades proved them right at Calcrease. Archaeologists uncovered thousands of artifacts exactly where the sources predicted. Coins dated to Varus's governorship, sling bullets clustered along a line matching the rampart fragments of chainmail, torn apart by force's silvered cavalry mask, crushed like a face. Science reconstructed the event minute by minute. The battle was not a single heroic clash, but a planned extermination zone, one of the earliest examples of strategic guerrilla warfare defeating a superpower. Teutoburg shattered 3 Roman myths. First, that discipline could conquer any landscape. Second, that loyalty could be manufactured through privilege. Third, that all enemies would fight by Roman logic. Arminius proved that understanding an empire from within is the surest way to break it. He did not defeat Rome with superior weapons, but with superior imagination. After 09 AD, the Rhine hardened into a cultural fault line. West of it grew cities speaking Latin, governed by written law. East of it developed the Germanic worlds that would become medieval kingdoms. The linguistic map of modern Europe still follows that boundary. One ambush helped create France and Germany, the Holy Roman Empire, even the divisions of the 20th century. Few battles in history shaped so much from so little ground. Today, the Teutoburg Forest is peaceful. Children cycle where legionaries died. Farmers plow over the last witnesses. Yet every coin that surfaces reminds us that empires are fragile stories agreed upon by the powerful. Rome believed its story was eternal. In a corridor of mud and trees, Arminius wrote a different ending. The forest remembers had happened beneath its branches. Rain continued to fall on broken shields and abandoned wagons, washing Roman blood into the dark soil of Germania. To the empire, the defeat was still unimaginable. Armies had been lost before, but never like this. Never 3 legions erased so completely that even their numbers were retired like cursed names. The Romans believed history moved only forward, yet in the Teutoburg Forest, history had turned around and looked them in the face. Messengers carried fragments of the disaster toward the Rhine. each bringing a different version of horror. Some spoke of legions swallowed by swamps, others of trees that seemed to attack like living creatures. Survivors arrived at the frontier forts with empty eyes, men who had once marched proudly beneath the eagles, now unable to explain how an army of Rome had dissolved into screams. The officers who heard them felt something unfamiliar fear, not of death, but of a world where Roman order no longer ruled. In Rome, the news traveled faster than reason. Markets trembled, families of soldiers crowded temples, and senators argued over whether the gods had abandoned the empire. Augustus, already an old man, walked the halls of his palace at night, repeating the same words as if they could reverse time. He had built Rome into the master of nations, yet in a distant forest that mastery had been mocked. The phrase attributed to him, "Varus, give me back my legions," was not only a cry of grief, it was the confession of an emperor who had discovered limits. Beyond the Rhine, Arminius did not behave like a conqueror in triumph. He knew too much about Rome to believe the story was finished. The tribes celebrated with feasts and sacrifices, but he watched the horizon, expecting sails of revenge to appear on the rivers. To his fellow chieftains he spoke carefully, reminding them that they had wounded a giant, not killed it. The eagles they had captured were powerful symbols, yet symbols could also provoke storms. Rome answered exactly as he expected. Within a few years, a new commander arrived, Germanicus, the rising star of the imperial family, loved by the soldiers and dangerous to his enemies. He crossed the Rhine not to govern, but to remember. His first campaigns were searches more than wars, expeditions to find the places where the legions had died. Guides led his army through the same dripping woods until they reached a landscape that looked like a nightmare preserved. There the Romans found the bone fields. Skeletons lay where they had fallen, some still wearing fragments of armor, others chained to trees as if the forest had grown around them. Tacitus wrote that even the hardened veterans were shaken, for they recognized the way Romans died, shield arm raised, sword hand broken, faces turned toward the standards that were no longer there. Germanicus ordered that every remain be gathered, enemy and friend alike, and a vast mound was built beneath the trees. It was the empire's attempt to apologize to its own dead. The war that followed became a contest between two students of Rome. Germanicus fought with the discipline of the legions, Arminius with the cunning he had learned in Roman service. Battles were won by the empire at Idista Viso and the Angevarian Wall, but victory never felt complete. The Germans melted back into their forests, refusing to become the kind of enemy Rome knew how to defeat. Each campaign cost more than it achieved, and slowly the dream of a Roman Germania began to fade. What happened in those years changed the character of the empire. Generals who once spoke of conquering the Elbe now spoke only of securing the Rhine. Forts became borders instead of stepping stones, and diplomacy replaced a confident march of roads. The Romans still called themselves masters of the world, but the world had grown smaller after Teutoburg. The forest had taught them geography's final argument. Arminius did not live to see the long result of his victory. Tribal politics, as cruel as any Roman intrigue, eventually turned against him, and he was murdered by rivals who feared his power. Yet his achievement outlived his life. He had shown that an empire built on discipline could be broken by imagination, that knowledge of an enemy's soul was sharper than any sword. Rome remembered him as a traitor. Germania remembered him as the man who proved freedom possible. Centuries have passed, and the battlefield is quiet now. Farmers plow fields that once drank the blood of legionaries, and children walk paths where standards fell. Archaeologists uncover coins and pieces of armor, arranging them carefully in museums, trying to rebuild a single week that altered 2,000 years. The Teutoburg Forest no longer looks like a place where history ended, yet beneath its calm surface lies the moment when Rome learned it was mortal. Empires prefer stories of triumph, straight roads leading from capital to horizon. The story of Teutoburg is different. It is a reminder that power can be deceived, that loyalty can wear a borrowed uniform, and that forests have a patience longer than any dynasty. The legions who entered those woods believed they carried the future with them. They left behind only silence, and from that silence a new Europe slowly emerged. Germanicus understood that he was not only fighting an enemy, but a memory. Every Roman soldier who crossed the Rhine carried the invisible weight of those lost legions on his shoulders. The new army marched with sharper discipline, yet beneath the polished armor lived a quiet dread. Veterans touched their eagle standards before sleep as if asking permission to survive the night. They had been sent to restore Rome's honor, but honor is a fragile thing when the trees themselves seem to remember your name. The campaign of Germanicus was designed like a ritual of cleansing. Roads were cut through the wilderness, bridges forced across stubborn rivers, and forts planted like iron nails in hostile soil. But Germania refused to become a province in the Roman sense. Villages vanished before the legions arrived, cattle were driven into marshes, and guides led the Romans in circles until even their compasses felt uncertain. Arminius watched all this with patient eyes, striking only where confidence grew too bold. At the Battle of Viso, the two worlds collided openly. Roman discipline met Germanic fury on a narrow plain between river and hill. Tacitus describes how the legions advanced like moving walls, shields locked, spears breathing forward in unison. Yet Arminius rode among his warriors, reminding them that Rome could bleed. The fighting lasted until the river turned heavy with bodies, and though the Romans claimed victory, the victory felt strangely empty, as if they had defeated shadows instead of men. Inside the Roman camp that night, Germanicus walked alone between the tents. He was the adopted son of an emperor, yet he looked more like a tired centurion. Officers argued about strategy, but the soldiers spoke only of home. Some had served in the very legions destroyed years earlier, and believed the forest recognized them. The general knew that armies are held together not by orders, but by belief, and belief was leaking slowly from his ranks. Arminius faced his own storms. The tribes that followed him were proud to the edge of chaos. Carusi, Bructeri, Marsi each remembered old rivalries older than Rome itself. Victory had united them for a season, but peace threatened to divide them again. Arminius tried to speak like a king to people who hated the word. His wife, Thusnelda, captured by the Romans, became both a wound and a political weapon, and his heart began to fight battles his sword could not win. Germanicus launched one final grand operation, determined to break the resistance before the emperor lost patience. The Romans advanced deep into territory no map truly understood. Storms trapped the fleet on the coast, horses died in flooded fields, and supplies rotted before reaching the camps. It was as if the land itself had chosen sides. Even the most loyal tribunes began to whisper that the gods of Germania were stronger than the eagles of Jupiter. The last great clash came near the Angevarian wall. an ancient earthwork older than memory. There the Romans forced their way through a narrow passage, while German warriors attacked from above like falling thunder. For a moment history balanced on the edge of a spear. Germanicus fought at the front, helmet dented, cloak torn, proving his courage to men who needed proof more than commands. The Romans broke through, yet Arminius escaped again, wounded but unbowed. When the Emperor Tiberius finally recalled Germanicus to Rome, the decision sounded like politics but felt like surrender. Official speeches spoke of completed missions and stabilized borders, yet every soldier knew the truth: the conquest of Germania had been quietly abandoned. The Rhine became a line not of ambition, but of acceptance. Rome, which had once believed the world was a road, discovered that some directions lead only into darkness. Years later, travelers along the frontier told stories of strange echoes in the forests, as if unseen legions still marched between the trees. Merchants swore they had seen ghostly standards at dawn, and children were warned not to mock the names 17, 18, 19. Myths grew where certainty had died. The empire continued to flourish in marble cities, but a small invisible scar remained on its soul. Arminius's end arrived without the music of legend. Accused of dreaming about kingship, he was struck down by his own kin. No Roman sword touched him. Germania completed what Rome never could. Yet even his enemies admitted that he had changed the shape of the world. Latin would not become the language of the Elbe, and the map of Europe would breathe in many tongues instead of one. Today the Teutoburg Forest stands gentle and almost ordinary. Birds cross the same sky where ravens once waited for battle. Tourists walk wooden paths above the marshes, reading careful signs that explain how an empire was humbled here. But when evening rain begins to fall, the place still feels like a closed book whose final page was written in iron. History often pretends that it moves by the will of emperors. The story of these lost legions says otherwise. It tells us that a single betrayal, a week of storms, and the courage of a people who refused to kneel can redirect centuries. Rome survived, mighty and brilliant, yet it never again looked north with innocent hunger. Beyond the Rhine remained a different world, born from mud, fear, and the silence of 3 eagles that never came home.